talk about? I'm going to talk very, very different, because I am going to talk about how people's purpose, life, everything can be decided based on just knowing their brain patterns or their thinking patterns, or what I call it as my brain designs, and that is exactly the pretext of the book that you are seeing up, which is here. So my own little journey, which I shared, but I'm going to share some more nuances to that journey. I hope my screen is visible, absolutely visible. Yes. So essentially, when I became a neurologist, this is sort of the quote which I completely have been living through. I am a brain, Watson. The rest of me is merely an appendix. So everything I believe is all right here. And thank you to those neurologists who are also in the session. You can absolutely second to what I'm saying. So life is all about psycho, neuro, physio, immuno, endocrinology. It all starts here and sort of, comes down into the last part of the body cell. If we are not able to fix here, then possibly it is impossible to fix the other half of our problems which we are facing. And exactly the same, we keep talking about the patients, right? I mean, in a typical setting, what do? We want to fix a physical problem, but until we go and fix here, it is almost instantly impossible to do that. Now, we all know about the brain. There are 1 raised to 86 particles, or 10 raised to 86 particles in the universe. But there are 10 raised to roughly around 80 connections, synapses in the brain. So imagine it is even more complex than a universe, and glaring statistics. So 2.5 petabyte of memory. When I first read that, I was like, what is a petabyte? So it's almost 100 million gigabyte, the GB that we know. So imagine the power which it contains, and then the amount of the processes that are happening. But when we go deeper into the layer, you start to understand that essentially when the brain is formed, there is an upper brain or the rational brain, and then a brain called the limbic brain or the emotional brain. Life is all a play about essentially understanding those two kinds of the brain. We all evolve. We evolve from this creepy, crawly creatures, reptilian brain. So essentially, we harbor these 3 brains right now as I speak, right? There is one little fish brain, I mean, vertebrates, we know that. Then we move on to this mammalian cortex, and then we move on to this rational cortex, or the human being as we are. But we have to question each of us, and are we really living the potentials of that human brain, or are we still in that, the reptilian brain, which is fight, flight, freeze? Or is it just the mammalian cortex that I just have to share love, give love, and that's it? Or there is a higher purpose with that brain. And that has always, sort of kindled my thinking all across. So this is, by God's grace, it has been in the world, top 30 global selling books on Amazon in the school counseling space. So when I thought my career was such a big sort of an experiment, because I started with the pretext of not liking it, to loving it, to sort of taking it away from typical neurology, to sort of building my own things in that. Why don't I share the story to the world? And why don't I help those youngsters who are at that point, who's, I'm sure your children, or, other children, other youngsters whom you come across. Life is very different. I started 25 years back, and there were only 2 options. I'm sure Dr. Sandeep would agree to that either you do engineering or you do medicine. There was
If you
nothing
are above 80%, you will be medical, below that 70, that means engineering, below that commerce and arts.
It was a formula, right? I mean, there was nothing else that we were allowed to do, or there was nothing which was existing. But look at today. I mean, today is such a wonderful thing. And when I was researching for the book, there were concepts such as there is going to be a virtual Sherpa. There's going to be a virtual memory curator in the future. There's going to be a guy who's going to take care of your personal memories. So a lot of things are going to change in the future, 2050. And we all know Chat GPT is here, right? The Chat GPT as an AI, artificial intelligence, is going to do so much of work. And then you wonder what a human being is all left to. So all these questions, about 2050, how things are going to be, what will be the new world of work? Now, is there anything which can predict what I can do best in that? And that is where neuroscience comes to rescue. And we have research. So this has been my research project with a very dear mentor of mine called Dr. Neethling. Now, Dr. Neethling is a Guinness Book World Record holder. And when I say this, for writing a book, okay, 136 pages in 4 minutes. Not reading a book, writing a book in 4 minutes. So, I mean, amazing creative genius kind of guy. So we both collaborated on this particular project, and we take it to the next level in a sense of, can we understand the young brains? What can we do to find them? And that is essentially, as I was talking, that it was like finding me, finding Shweta's kind of story. We discussed about this, that it has to be love or arranged, it's always better. So in that process, when I finished all the 14 years, I said, let me explore all the personality tools which are existing in this world. There were around 72 tools. And I remember I was in a cold place. I was doing my stroke fellowship in Calgary, -40 outside. I was sipping a hot cup of tea, and I had just finished my fellowship, and I wondered, am I in the right path? Now imagine, after finishing 14 years, you're still questioning yourself, am I doing right? I don't know whether I'm in the right place. And that tickled me, that I said, okay, I'm going to take 6 months off. I do nothing. I go back and I explore all the tools, and I spent all the dollars which I had earned in that internship or in that fellowship. And I started to take one by one all the courses. I met some of the top career mentors, and every single mentor that I would meet, and I would say that, this is the state of my sort of career. Would you help me craft it? Who am I? And my profound question to them, obviously outside the spiritual realm, was, can you tell me, what is my ingredient? What am I made for? What I can do in life? And that was the pivotal point where I started to get a lot of insights. We chose around 1,000 students globally with Dr. Neatling's effort. We talked to them, we discussed them, we talked to their parents. We understood how the careers are chosen. So a lot of time, 6 months, essentially spending with this and doing a lot of tests. Believe me, all kinds of personality. My science of psychometric tests sort of, expanded like anything, because I kept on doing the test. And every single report, sort of guided me to the type of the brain that I was. And then I was wishing that there is a test which changes my life. And that test was this Neatling Brain Inventory. And that is how I started to, work with them. So this is what Dr. Sandeep was talking about. Now, all of you present here, so in my 8 years of journey, one thing I realized, if you understand what your brain is like, because remember that the neuroscience says around the age of 13, that's when your brain consolidates. Your brain design is all laid. So after that, you're only building certain skills. But what is that brain preference? And that is essentially very important. And I'll show some statistics very soon. But how many of us, let's do an honest check here. We are all here to do something amazing, to do great. How many of us are actually having love or arranged, careers? So I think we'll open up that question in the end. And it is so important to be happy doing what you are. I think a lot of amazing people have said that, I never felt I worked for a single day because I was so happy doing what I was doing. And if you look at some of the statistics, look at Gallup statistics. Gallup is the largest body which collects all the work analysis and work statistics. Now, as per Gallup, only the little green that you guys see is only the engaged people in the work. Majority of them are not engaged. And then there are some people who are actively disengaged in a work scenario. Now, this can happen, and that is sort of our work, that this can happen only when your brain preference is not aligned to the work that you are doing. Because what happens is, you have a very different preference, let's say, and I will come back to that again, but you have a very different preference of creative flair, and your job is settling the accounts. So you may to be fantastic in settling the accounts, which is amazing skill that you have done. But it is like me, having to go to a party, wearing one party dress, and then kind of living with that party dress forever. The moment I come home, all I want to do is I just want to remove that party dress and then go back to my comfort. So that is not the brain comfort, which is essentially happening there. So essentially, all this led me to think that thinking is very, very powerful. So I think at this stage, let's do one thinking experiment. How thinking, a lot of your videos are not on. So if you can do this video on, then this will be really a fascinating experiment to do. This has been tested multiple times and it has never failed. This is a beautiful experiment. Fantastic. Thank you very much. So very simply, what you can do is, and now I can see all of your beautiful faces. Wonderful. This is what you do. You take your hands. Okay, I might remove my virtual this so that you can see it better. Just hold on. Yes. Okay. So what you do is you take your hand and touch your wrists here and then fold it like that. आप दोनों wrist को लेके सीधा करें और fold करें hands को, and then focus on the middle fingers. You will see either the middle fingers are equal or one is taller than the other. It just start telling me taller, shorter, what is happening, Aman, Annapurnaji, just tell me what is happening. For me, they both are same. Sandeep ji, aapke liye, what is it like?
For me, it's
Dr.
same.
Sandeep? Same, okay, quickly. Chota, bada, if there is somebody has smaller, please shout out, small, big, whichever is that. Remember that. Kapila, same for you? Or are they muted? So they can't speak, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, okay,
Let me
fantastic. So
unmute.
keep
If someone
in mind,
want to unmute themselves, they can. I am giving the option.
Equal.
That's same. Yeah.
Equal.
Equal.
Yeah.
Left is taller. Left is taller.
Is taller.
Equal.
You are muted, ma'am.
Ma'am is muted. Ma'am is muted.
Dr. Sweta, you are muted. You have to unmute yourself.
yeah. So I think shorter finger, please remember the shorter finger, please remember the equal ones. Majority of you are equal. Now, let's do this experiment. Okay, for the people who are equal, choose one finger in your mind, whatever you want, which will become taller than the other. Okay, whichever you like, right or left, doesn't matter. I'm also choosing one in my mind.
Sorry,
For
please
those with the
repeat.
shorter
Please
finger
repeat.
on one side, just either make, yeah. For those with two equal fingers, pick up any one finger, left or right, doesn't matter, and think in your mind that it's growing taller than the other. Okay, instruction is clear. For the
Yes,
equal
please.
fingers, think in your mind, left or right, doesn't matter. कोई भी एक वो उससे बड़ा हो जाएगा. It will be taller than the other. Okay. For those who had one short, think that it becomes equal to that other finger. Okay, dono equal ho jaye. That is what you have to think in your minds. Remove your hands completely, you know, and think it. You can remove your hands, Rukshana. I don't know what is that. Yeah, just remove
Yes,
your hands. Don't now you think. Whatever the finger, doesn't matter. Just keep in your mind and keep thinking whichever finger. So I also have a finger. I'm thinking about it, which will become taller. And let's do it again. Okay. Think properly, think with your full whole heart, and check what happens.
Oh, wow.
Now, this is not hypnosis, by the way, okay? This is a neurophysiology experiment. And when you take calipers, and we have done this, taking calipers, measuring the micromillimeters and all, it indeed makes a neurophysiological change. Okay, this is exactly the experiment which I was talking to you about in the psycho, neuro, physio, immuno, endocrinology. Starts all here, but goes down to the physiology. This is a very, very powerful experiment to
Mine was
document.
equal after.
Yes, yours. Did it change? Did it change?
No, it did not change.
So do it again. 80% of the time, who do it again, who do it properly, get it done. So 80% is what the classical experiment also has suggested.
Mine right was taller, but now after the experiment, it's equal. Yes.
Yeah. So because we said short will become equal to the other, right? So that is exactly what we wanted. In for equal, I think Dr. Sandeep's one, I think left her, because I was watching a few people, this one did indeed get taller. So this is a repeated experiment we've done with thousands of people across the globe. Please do it when you are at, you know, again, as repeated, this is an amazing, this is just to showcase if little bit of thinking is doing this, just imagine how much of a proper, appropriate thinking methodology can change your lives. And to that, Dr. Sandeep's point that how I could do it because I keep it here and then start to work from here and then say that it is possible and it indeed manifests. So I don't believe in law of manifestation, but I do believe that it is extremely important to feel that thing in the brain. You know, when you feel it, all the right chemicals come in. By the way, to that point, let me share also, there are some experiments, and this is a secret, by the way, there are some experiments which have shown, there was a very famous guy called Leon Pascal, who did a piano playing experiment. So he chose two cohorts. One guy was actually playing a piano practice, and the other guy was mentally practicing the piano. He took the brain samples of both. They did a PET scan, they did functional MRI, and they did to understand what is the area of the brain which had the activity, both during the physical practice and the mental practice. To the surprise, both the activities were exactly the same, which means the mental practice was equally powerful as the physical practice. Now you can deduce from this experiment, a lot of people have deduced many things. If you want to do some physical exercise such as Surya Namaskar, let's call it sun salutations or Surya Namaskar, if you do it mentally, your effect on the brain is going to come exactly the same as what you would practice physically. I mean, obviously your joint flexibility and all may not happen to that extent, but this is the power what can happen, the power of actually making the feel, because in the brain does not understand between real and imagery, the subconscious, and someday maybe we can talk about the subconscious mind and a lot of things as well. But it's a very, very interesting and powerful way to modulate your processes, your pathophysiology, your neurophysiology, all that can be modulated. So this is the message that thinking is essentially powerful. Now, knowing what to think is one thing, but how do we think is another thing. And that is the whole pretext of my work, which is how can we understand what are we thinking, and the way we think translates into way we work, relationships, communication. All the problems of universe in the relationship is only because of one common factor, and that is communication. So different brains communicate differently. If we understand from the 4 parts of the brain, as I was just talking about, the upper brain and the lower brain, again, you divide into left and right. Now, this is a metaphorical division. Anatomically, there are no correlates to such tests, but generally we know that the frontal part of the brain is more toward what you see in the yellow, is more towards executive function, decision, understanding of the nuances of daily life. It is more about taking calls, judgments, etc. While more posteriorly on the parietal is more visual, visuospatial, more temporal is more about comprehension and more about verbal, and very back is more about vision or visual. So these are the general 4 parts of the brain. But in the psychoanalysis, what we do, and which has been borrowed from a Nobel Prize winning Dr. Sperry's work, is that the brain gets divided into essentially these 4 parts, and all of us present here on this call, irrespective, always has dominant parts of thinking process. Okay, so there is one half of the brain which is all about data. It is all about knowledge about the perfect thing. I want it this way exactly. That is our rational brain. Then there is an innovation brain, which is more towards the parieto-occipital, which we were talking. It is all about doing new things, adventure, out of the box thinking. I want to do this, which is very different. Then there is a process brain, which is in essence all about organizing things, doing it perfectly, doing it on time, doing it in a method which is well documented. Loyalty, etc. comes in that process brain. And then there is a brain which is people's brain. So empathy, touch, cooperation, care, doing things for people, understanding people is all in that brain. Now, all of us combined on this call or on this planet Earth, we all largely think from 2 quadrant dominant brains. Okay, so in our language, we call it brain design. What's your brain design? Kind of, are you 2 quadrant, 3 quadrant, 4 quadrant? You think from 1 quadrant, whatever you think. And this has been a data which is from 1 million data sets from Dr. Herman's work. 60% of the people are dominant thinkers in 2, which means, let's say, for example, I'm a lower thinker, process and people. I don't care much about data. I don't care about much of the innovation. All I care about is people, processes, and teachers, largely teachers, consultants, people working in the social work, NGOs have that kind of a brain. So each of us would have different combinations, and those are the combinations that we have put in the book. So you will see umpteen combinations arising out of it. Now, each of the brains also has some dimensions of thinking. Not, let's say, if my brain and Dr. Sandeep's brain is same, but we may be very different in terms of the dimensions. So in our work, we have called it 2 by 4 by 8 designs, which means the 2 parts left and right again further divides into upper and lower brain, and then the 8 different dimensions of the brain comes out of it. And based on those dimensions, then what we did was we layered around 800 professions. So I was very fortunate to have done interviews across the world, all the way from Japan to Canada, with a lot of people in various professions. So we devised a scale where we felt they were happy doing or fulfilled. The whole idea of working is being fulfilled, being happy where you are in that profession or in that workplace. And then we sort of carved those maps back into the designs. And what we found was absolutely stunning and amazing, that the people who were doing data-centric jobs and had that data brain were very happy. People who were in operations, middle-level jobs, who were doing logistics, supply chain, who had more to do with safekeeping, who were in military, who were in defense, were very happy if they had that process brain, which was dominant. Exactly the same thing when it was a CEO brain, it was more the upper brain. If it was more of a social worker's brain, it was more towards the people brain. So we were able to layer each of the 800 different courses, curriculums. We were able to define and dissect different professions. And that is what the maps are in this. And I've been very, very fortunate, I kept on getting the right people. So when you see my brain design, we have helped more than 10,000 people globally. And in that exercise and process, we have had pretty much exposure to help every single person, irrespective of their ethnicity in the global world. So this is the exercise that we had done, and this proves to the point, and we do it with children, we do it with a lot of people, to say that, let's be aware about the power of thinking that you and me possess to change things, to just, make a big difference in our life. Now, this is the pyramid, which I'm extremely passionate about talking, because this is the pyramid which applies to adults, children, whoever, whatever the stage of life we are in. If we were to fix where are we going in that career success, it all starts with self-discovery. Who am I? What is my strength? What is the opportunities that I can do best to the world? What is that I can, get to that level? And then obviously it comes down to career consciousness focus. We have developed some maps called life design blueprints. Then all of us, we all of you who have children, luckily I don't have, and that's a good thing, but if you have children, you would have struggled to know, how do you send them to extracurricular activities? There's karate happening, and then there's coding happening, and there's so many activities which are happening. What is good for your brain? So what is good is you need to do a balance between flow and grow. You flow in their dominant thinking preferences, and then you sort of grow only working on the weaknesses. Our science says that don't do that. Let them be doing something which is their powerful preferences, and then support them or let them grow in that one particular preference. So that is what is in terms of the children. And then obviously currently our project is ongoing, and maybe in my next 6 months or something I can share, we are actually mapping all the top brains in different top positions, healthcare, IT, millionaires, sports people. In fact, we had very latest map from the lady called Nicole. She's the one who has climbed Burj Khalifa. So what is it in their brains which is unique in terms of their wiring? And we do believe that there are some interesting things in their brains which is helping them to overcome all that we discussed, Yes, Dr. Sandhu.
Dr. Sweta, your voice is breaking. If you can check the internet connection, that would be great. It's breaking.
Sure. Okay. Let me just, okay. Is it clear now?
Right, that's better.
Okay, fantastic. Just let me know, because I won't realize. So every single successful brain, what we are talking about, there's something special about them. And we all can, by the way, do whatever we want to do, there's no brain which is incapable, because the ingredients is all the same. But people who start to understand what is their brain's thinking preferences. For example, for Nelson Mandela, for Mother Teresa, we know that it is that people's brain which was so dominant, which was so centrally focused in her life that she could do what she could do. There are designers like Chanel about the innovative brain, which was good. And then we have brains such as of Oprah, where they could be between the data as well as the innovation. So these are the type of the people who can make a difference, provided the preferences are known and set. And this is Dr. Neethling, by the way, what you see up on the top, the mentor whom I was talking about. This is, and he's been mapping a lot of brains of cricketers, and this is the A.B. de Villiers brain that you see on the left. So with the same phenomena of this 4 design by 8 design. So what you see on that circle, L1 is left upper, which is the data, L2, which is the process brain, R2, which is the people's brain, and R1, which is the design brain or the innovation brain. Now you wonder, why do you need to map cricketers? Your strategies, the way you will be behaving with the team. Okay, so we were talking about why do we need to do that for cricketers? I mean, you need to do pretty much for any team building process to understand the ingredients. I'm more of an innovation brain and a process brain. So I kind of drive my car with a brake and a pedal on simultaneously. So I need some innovation pedal at the same time. I need data. I need process, I need this. So once I understood that this is the make that I am, I was very clear that where I'm heading to in my life. And that is what I wanted to do for many more children, etc. and all. And that is by God's grace, help, we have been doing that across. This is the map which was created by Dr. Herman, that every single person, whoever is there in a particular profession, has certain type of the brain. And this is, by the way, from a very, very large data set, almost close to 1 million profiles, very, very sound statistics and very robust process that Dr. Herman had put it up, almost the similar sort of a thing that entrepreneurs, your artists and all are having a very right upper kind of an approach in the brain. And then you have a lot of data, stock, finance, chemists, data kind of in the upper left quadrant of the brain. And then you have nurses, bookkeepers, operations management below, and then you have the social work and elementary school teachers, etc. in that right column. So kind of, our science, his science shouts the same thing out, that depending on the brain preference, which is solidified at the age of 13. Now, this is crucial. Before that, you have all the room to play in the children. After 13, sort of it remains the same. And then we followed up people. So for example, my brain, we've followed up for last 10 years. A little bit of change in the numbers, but the shape essentially remains the same. And that is the beauty, that once you know your preferences, which is sort of solidified, you understand how do you come out and how do you work. So this is just an extended map of it. Communications, and that is a very big portion which all of us have to understand. How do we communicate, and that is so important, that if I am a data brain and suddenly somebody only talks vague ideas to me, only keeps talking something which is not specific, I will be completely off. So if we have done a lot of team building exercises based on it, one of the latest one which we completed with a US group, and we put the people into different groups, and from the team building perspective, you need all 4 sides of the brain together in a brainstorming process, in any process where you want to come out with solutions, because let's say there are only idea guides in the room, nobody will make it happen. There's no implementation which is missing. If there are only people-centric people in that thing, you will only be caring, empathy, you will only keep customer in the mind, but you will not think about anything which is data-centric, etc. So communication, profession, working, your patients. In fact, with patients, this has been the most helpful tool for me as a practitioner. So even patients have different mix of the brain, right? There are some patients who will be very data-centric, left kind of patients, and some of them who would just sit casually and then joke and talk about your family first, which is amazing, those right, lower quadrant kind of patients. Now, when you as a practitioner are giving a medicine, I always make sure that in my mind, I create the graphic picture of the patient from the brain's perspective. And if it's a left upper that I'm talking with, I will be very meticulous in the tablets that I give, with the exact amount of the precise half a tablet to be taken at 7:45 with half a glass of water or 200 ml, more specificity in the data. While if it's a right, I just casually chill. I also ask about the family. Now the same, both the brains will walk out and say, this was a good doctor, because I did exactly the same thing, but I was inside the brain of that particular person, and I navigated based on how they want their thinking to be navigated. And this is across people, across this, and we have shared some fantastic work for the adults in the book of a bonus chapter of the book as well. I'm extremely passionate to know the brain in various angles. So we all know that this frontal lobe, what I was talking about, now this is all fantastic science which has come out from Oxford. There's been some amazing work from the group that I know in Cambridge. All have been trying to search what is in the brain which leads us to the next level. What is that peak performance? What really happens? And what is essentially happening is that frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex, is thicker. The connections are better there, and the limbic lobe or the emotional lobe is less firing. All of us, irrespective, we have to get to that. And question is, how do we get to that? So there are some pranayama practices, there are some yogic ancient techniques, there are some meditation practices. I saw there were a lot of talks. I think Dr. Sudesh Shah, who's also a mentor, he talked about the meditation. So the whole idea of bringing all these spiritual practices, all the things are here is just to get to that level of that frontal lobe. If we are not developing the cortices of the frontal cortex or the connections of it or synapses of it, then we are not really doing anything which is worthwhile. Now, we all know, we get excited. This will be my last point, and then I'll open to Sandeep. We all get excited about IQ. And then there is a big, huge cry in the world about the EQ. So let us also understand what is SQ. and that is the spiritual quotient. So in the brain, how do we know that I have an SQ? What is the SQ all about? Let me show a very quick whiteboard to explain when we say IQ and SQ and what do we really mean, in the context of the brain. So let's say there is a brain cell neuron, which is A. You can see my screen, right? Fantastic. There is a neuron called B. There is a neuron called C, or the brain cell. And then there is a neuron called D here. Now, when we say IQ, one neuron is talking to the other, is talking to the other, is talking to the other, and coming back. There is a linear connection between the neurons. And when I say neuron one is just a bunch of few neurons in the brain or brain cells. So this is IQ, intelligent quotient. When we talk of spiritual quotient, the neurons can talk to each other, cross-talk. There are connections which it can make in between amongst themselves. So there is a complex connection. When people have that, that's sort of even better EQ. But what happens when there is SQ? When there is SQ, now in the emotional quotient before, when this fires, the firing stops, it moves on to this fires, this stops, this fires, this stops, again, this comes, it fires. There is no simultaneous firing. SQ is nothing but simultaneous firing of all the four sides, okay, A, B, C, and D, everything is firing at the same time, everything is connecting. So there's sort of a synchronization of every single cell which is happening now. This is a state which is amazing. This is a state which all of us should aim to, sort of achieve. And if this is a state, if we are able to develop also for our patients or for anybody, I think this is where we want to be. When that happens, you don't have to worry about, I'm doing so much or I'm doing less. I don't have time. I don't have, all that will vanish. And this is a study from Harvard, which is a beautiful curve for children versus adults, the brain's ability to change and the effort required to change. Now, imagine for youngsters, there's very little ability required to change the brain. So we can work with them even better, even faster. And then as we age, sort of the curve increases, the effort required is proportionately increased. So my one message for all of you with young kids is, let's work with them. I think we can do magic with the new generation. We can have them get to their top abilities, and most importantly, not just from the career success, from the point of view of utilizing their assets. All of us have this amazing human assets with that frontal lobe to make something amazing, fantastic for people's progress, purpose. I think the whole idea of living on this planet Earth is to work with each other for fulfilling the purpose, the bigger purpose, the humane purpose. So thank you very much. I'm Dr. Sweta Adatia. Thank you for inviting me, Dr. Sandeep and Dr. Ranjan. We do miss him today. He's in a conference. And all of you wonderful guests who are here listening. That's my details. And I'm very much available, very much open. I'm a person who's always available and would like to make a difference in even one single life. I'm always there. Thank you.